So hello everybody and welcome to the webinar Greening the Youth Sector and Sustainability Checklist. My name is Lana Pasic. I'm a Youth Research and Policy Officer at the EU Council of Europe Youth Partnership, and I will be facilitating this event today. For those of you that are new to the BlueJeans platform, or this is your first time to use it, we will only have speakers visible on the screens, but the rest of you can participate and join using the chat function that you will find on the right side of your screen. And you can also ask questions through the Q&A. This event is recorded and it is also streaming live on the Facebook channels of the World Forum for Democracy, Council of Europe, and EU Council of Europe Youth Partnership. So I would like to invite Lana from the World Forum for Democracy to briefly explain the context within which we are having this webinar today.
Yes, thank you, Lana, and hello, everyone. I'm also from the part of the World Forum for Democracy. So this webinar is part of the campaign 12 months to answer one question: can democracy save the environment? This campaign consists of 12 months of online exchanges, interviews, webinars on the topic of democracy and climate action. And each month is devoted to a different topic. And in June, we are really focusing on the role of youth in tackling climate crisis. And we are glad that today our colleagues are presenting the sustainability checklist, which is such a practical tool for youth organizations that are trying to be more sustainable. It's also my pleasure to announce that today, for the first time, we have some of the World Forum for Democracy youth delegates joining our event. This is a group of young, enthusiastic students from around the globe that were carefully selected and trained by the trainers here at the Council to become a very active part of our campaign and also hopefully of our live World Forum for Democracy in Strasbourg this November. And today we have Clara joining us from another part of the world. She's connecting from Brazil, and she will join the panel after the initial presentations. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Lana, for this. Just to give a bit of background as to why the Youth Partnership is involved in this, or how we became involved with the sustainability checklist. So for those of you who do not know, at the Youth Partnership, we do quite a lot of research. In fact, we have a pool of researchers, which is a network of people from across Europe who are collecting knowledge and data and evidence about the issues that are important to young people and that are of importance to young people's lives. And sustainability and climate change have been quite high on the agenda for quite some time today. So we have been working on development of this checklist, but also on some other documents. We have a ticket on sustainability, and recently we also published a paper on disobedient youth, which looks at the young people's actions and activism when it comes to climate change. And our research on political participation also covers the aspect of climate activism quite a bit. So I have here with me today a couple of people who will be sharing their experiences on this topic. So I have Pega Mulana, who is the chairperson of the Task Force on Climate Change within the Council of Europe, and she's a member of the Advisory Council on Youth. Then we have Neringa Tumenaite, who is also an activist on climate and a member of the Pool of European Youth Researchers, and she's the author of the checklist. And then we have the representatives of youth NGOs who have been involved in consultation process with us on the development of checklist. So Theo Le Carpentier from JEF, so Young European Federalists, and Vicky Lovelock from CCIVS. And as Lana mentioned already, we also have a representative of youth delegates, Clara Botto, who will be sharing some of her experiences later and who have an opportunity to directly ask our panelists for clarifications or to even challenge some of their claims. So I pass the floor to Pega to explain why we did a sustainability checklist and why did the Council of Europe Youth Department consider this an important work.
Hi, and thank you, Lana, or Lanas, for opening the floor, and I'm really happy to be here. And sometimes I feel as though, being the chairperson of the task force, I'm more doing the background work than something as lovely as this. So thank you to you both to actually giving it a bit of visibility and showing that we as youth are doing our best wherever we are located. First, I will start with at the Advisory Council on Youth, very briefly, so the audience knows exactly what is the capacity. God, I've been living in Portugal for too long now. I think in the capacity that the Advisory Council functions, and specifically, it's composed of 30 young people who have been nominated by the Secretary General of the Council of Europe for the duration of 2 years to advise the Committee of Ministers on issues pertaining to young people. And that also includes mainstreaming within activities of Council of Europe, but also to drive youth policies. And climate action involves one of them. So as a result, since I started my mandate, I've had the occasion to work on this portfolio. And one of the primary work that we did was to host a thematic debate within the Youth Department of Council of Europe to gain a momentum on where exactly we want to go when it comes to this topic. And we came up with following decisions. One was to internally change our structure so we are climate friendly. Second was to ensure that we as youth organizations are also reflecting the idea that we are preaching. And this comes to the sustainability checklist. And thirdly, we are thinking of working on a recommendation paper on young people's access to a healthy environment. So as you can tell, this is a three-angle motion. And at the moment, we are on the second phase of that. So I really have to say special thanks to the partnership and also Naringa for making sure that we are achieving these goals. As a result of this, the task force is scheduled to meet this Friday from this session to showcase the final proposal that we have on the sustainability checklist. I will not go further in detail about the sustainability checklist because I think this is what Naringa will do best. But what I can tell you is that within the Youth Department of Council of Europe, we are very, very keen on this checklist, not only as a youth department, but also through the European Youth Foundation, because we can implement this checklist on a daily basis from applications that we receive. So I'm really excited, and I hope that this will be a start for a new era of how sustainability works within youth organizations across Europe. So thank you again for inviting me, and if you have any questions, do let me know.
Thank you, Pega, for that. And of course, as you mentioned, the checklist is something that was done in cooperation with Youth Department, with the European Youth Foundation, but also very important to mention the role that youth organizations have played in helping us to really shape it and understand what are some of the best practices that are already in use across Europe. Because the checklist has been developed and it is there, but it's really the youth organizations that are doing this amazing work on ensuring that the events that are implemented in our field are sustainable. So I pass the floor to Neringa, or should I say I pass the microphone powers and the screen sharing powers to Neringa to share the presentation and explain some of the research and background of the checklist and what is it that we are proposing to youth organizations.
Thank you, Lana and Pega, for the introduction. I share my screen now. All right. I hope you can see it well. So here's Greening the Youth Sector Sustainability Checklist. It is a result of a desk review of best practices of 11 youth NGOs, so working in Europe and worldwide, consultation with 15 civic society organizations, some of which have joined us here today, and the task force already presented by Pega. So we know that climate crisis has a big impact on our lives, including loss of biodiversity, deforestation, water scarcity, natural disasters, extinction of species, and overall degradation of Earth's ecosystems, and including around 20 million people in forced migration. Young people have been acting on this, also because they have been greatly affected. And some of these effects are focused on mental and physical health, including young people being exposed to environmental toxins and related illnesses. Research by Amnesty International found that the climate crisis is among the key issues cited by young people when it comes to the biggest challenges facing the world today. Among the reaction of youth has been protests. So we know what began in 2018 as a lone protest by Greta Thunberg has developed in the largest mass protest for action on climate in history, with over 2,000 events in over 160 countries worldwide. What is interesting to note is that youth have been particularly interested in taking legal action as well. So among more notable cases has been Portugal, where 7 young people sued 47 member states of Council of Europe to the European Court of Human Rights to stop further fossil fuel extraction. Colombia, where 25 youth activists have made the case that the deforestation in Amazon threatens rights to healthy environment, as well as Germany, where following a complaint of 9 mostly young activists, Germany's constitutional court ruled that country's 2019 Climate Protection Act must be improved and is not good enough. There's a particular link between climate crisis and inequalities, and it has a particular effect on marginalized and vulnerable groups. And a recent report by the European Environmental Bureau has stated that European policymaking currently does not adequately address the strong correlation between the allocation of environmental burdens and lack of environmental services and the ethnic background of the most impacted residents. We know that this issue with inequality stretches beyond Europe, and that impact of climate crisis in the global south is greater. So, for example, Parliamentary Assembly report has noted that it is expected that by the 2050 there will be over 2 million people displaced due to climate. This is largely related to the global economic system, which heavily relies on unequal power relations, where the resources of the global south are exploited to feed the consumer habits in the global north. So just as an example, the European Union currently imports 43% of its products from abroad, thus offshoring our environmental damage to other regions. And this as a concept has been be known as climate colonialism. However, we must balance between our individual responsibility and us as youth organizations and between the responsibility of bigger players. So notably, 100 corporate and state-owned entities account for 71% of global industrial greenhouse gas emissions. So in our advocacy, we also plan to make sure that businesses act responsibly and that the government is pushed to enforce regulations. Very briefly on the institutional frameworks of the EU and the Council of Europe. So when it comes to the European Union, it has adopted the European Green Deal, which is a bloc-wide goal of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and its related European climate law, which makes this legally binding, as well as EU biodiversity strategy for 2030. Specifically in relation to young people, Erasmus Plus program has included climate among its 5 key priorities and encourages organizations to incorporate green practices in all projects through an environmentally friendly approach. Council of Europe has been at the forefront of using human rights-based approach to the environmental protections and standard setting, notably through the European Convention of Human Rights, the Berne Convention of the Conservation of European Wildlife and Natural Habitats, and the European Social Charter. It has also included it in non-formal education and youth engagement. So, for example, in Compass Manual for Human Rights Education, World Forum for Democracy, where we are today, and European Youth Centers who use different sustainable approaches, and the consultative meetings and the task force, which Becca has already presented. So coming to the sustainability checklist, it has 9 themes, overall 77 points, and it should be noted that it proposes tools for self-evaluation and reflection, and should be used and viewed flexibly and be made inclusive and adapted to different circumstances. So the themes are teamwork, accommodation and venue, food and consumables, transport, printing and paper, welcome packs and promotional gifts, buying fair trade, reducing digital footprint, and education. So very briefly, when it comes to venue, the organizations are encouraged to check for green certification and opting for venue that has energy and water conservation program, and where possible, cooperating with local social economy initiatives such as cooperatives, foundations, social enterprises instead of big commercial enterprises, and choosing venues where the workers' rights are respected. And transportation by motorized vehicles should be limited to minimum. This means the accommodation should be either in the same place or as close to the meeting venue as possible, or easily accessible by public transportation. When it comes to using the venue, the recommendations include opt not to change towels and sheets every day. Air conditioning or similar cooling heating system should be used only when necessary, avoiding using unnecessary heating of meeting rooms, and using natural light as much as possible. Trying to reuse as much as possible from the last events. So, for example, decorations, non-reusable name tags, etc. And considering having your meeting outdoors if the weather allows. When it comes to food, we have 3 key slogans: go local, go seasonal, and go plant-based. Going local is important because regional products help reduce environmental pollution through transportation and reducing the food miles that are required. Seasonal fruit and vegetables can help reduce environmental impact because they do not require heated greenhouses or freezing. And livestock sector is notably generating more greenhouse gas emissions than transport and is a major source of deforestation. For example, when land is cleared to grow animal feed and water pollution. So among practices encouraged are to hosting activities which are vegetarian or vegan, or asking in the registration form, do you require meat rather than do you require vegetarian catering? And of course, if you need to provide non-vegetarian meals, organic and locally produced food should be prioritized. It should be made tasty and nutritious food, as well as communication is also very important. So explain to the participants of the activity the reason behind your decisions. And this could be done either by your presentation or including a whole session on it, and promoting the use of ceramic or glass plates and minimizing the use of packaging for food. When it comes to water, of course, encouraging participants to bring their own water bottles or providing reusable individual glasses for the whole event. And one of the hacks could be to use paper tape for people to write their names on cups so they can be used again. When it comes to recycling and composting, this is also very important. So you could tag recycle bins, organic paper, glass, plastic in an easy way and locate them in strategic and accessible and visible places, as well as donating the leftovers. Among the notes is to remember that reusing is always preferable to recycling and should be prioritized because even recycling requires energy consumption. Transport. Public transport should always be prioritized, and whenever it is not available, effort should be made to group people in shuttle buses or create joint Excel sheets with arrival times so participants could share a ride. It is also important to provide equal opportunities for people with disabilities and making sure to include information related to accessibility. Avoid flights when possible and encourage traveling by bus, train, eco-friendly boating, car sharing, or bicycle when possible. Go digital and avoid traveling for short-term meetings and evaluate which activities could be hosted online and balance face-to-face and digital activities, as well as consider mixing online and face-to-face participation. Bringing unnecessary items should be avoided, as well as printing tickets when they can be used online. And organizations are encouraged to have participants combine multiple reasons for travel and using bicycles or non-motorized vehicles through the program. Printing should be minimized and color printing should be kept to minimum. Flip chart should be used economically as well, writing on both sides. And at the end of the event, plan how you will collect event materials and inform participants about it. So for example, a visible box to collect recycled badges and lanyards. When it comes to welcome packs and promotional gifts, organizations should think how the participants will use them after the activity. And if they do decide to have them, to order them from eco-friendly suppliers, or consider DIY promo items as a get-together activity and to allow participants to create souvenirs on the spot. Buying fair trade, look for goods that are fair and local. However, if you decide to buy goods from abroad, commit to buying fair trade, which have been certified. Though, of course, as with organic food, if the food is not labeled as fair trade, it does not necessarily mean that it is not. It just may not be certified. It is therefore advisable to buy locally from trusted organizations. When it comes to reducing digital footprint, it is also an important point because some estimates show that 3.7% of global greenhouse emissions are caused by digital gadgets. Therefore, participants should be encouraged to limit the use of laptops and projectors. Monitors should be put on standby mode automatically, even after a short period of inactivity, and the files should be optimized, as well as the use of open source software on computers to share work to make it accessible. And finally, we have education as the last and probably the most important point. So it is recommended to include a session about environmental protection, environmental activism, or sustainability in the activity program, inviting small-scale producers or vegetarian influencers to speak at courses and seminars, organizing a social evening to watch educational documentaries, and of course, being inclusive, so considering the checklist within your own context and adapting to the young people you work with. So as a final note, environmental awareness and thinking sustainably are part of continuous process of learning, innovating, and recreating. So we hope you found these guidelines useful. They are not yet published. We hope the finalized version will be out in September. However, if you would like to access the current draft version without the proofreading, you're free to email youth-partnership@partnership-u.coe.int, and we can share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neringa, for that. And indeed, we will be preparing the checklist in many user-friendly formats over the next coming months. And those that are participating in the event here via Blue Jeans have already seen the checklist, as did the youth organizations. But in case that you have not received it and would like to get hold of it and have a look before it is officially published, you are welcome to write to us, and we will, of course, share it with you. Okay, so we have seen what the proposals are for sustainability when it comes to organizing youth activities and events. And from my perspective, personally, having worked also on the research on digital tools, it's really interesting and important to mention that people often assume that digital means that it is immediately environmentally friendly, and I think it's important to highlight that that is not always the case, and we really have to think broader about sustainability. Okay, so then I will pass the floor to the members of youth organizations that are actually doing quite a lot on this topic already. So first, I think we will go to Theo. So to Young European Federalists, and Theo is a project officer, and he works on integrating sustainability and basically sustainable activities in youth events that Jeff organizes. So Theo, I guess you will be able to share, or you will have a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm gonna present you a bit what Jeff is doing. So it's actually of twofold. If we can pass the next, and you will understand by actually having better understanding of what is Jeff. So Jeff is an independent transnational political youth NGO present in several countries, and that involve local volunteers to implement some activities. Yeah, next slide, please. So then, as I say, we have we're working on being green on advocacy work. We just joined, the umbrella organization Generation Climate Europe, which I might join forces with different youth organizations to promote environmental sustainability practices and also to have a green campaign for the different international events, and especially also, which is very important for us, on the Conference on the Future of Europe, in order to bring the environmental topic as many times as possible. Then thank you. We also have a task force on green transition. The idea of this task force that have been implemented for a year and a half now is to reflect on how we can, as local volunteers, national volunteers, and at European level as well, develop some strategy tools and exchange good practices to reduce Jeff Europe and carbon footprint. So yeah, we conducted several surveys, we had several trainings online, and the idea will be to do more, and this is going to be linked to the second projects, because now we have two projects. So one which is actually funded by the Council of Europe and the European Youth Foundation. It's called Greenie, and the aim is to establish good environmental practices in youth organization. So the main activity, so we'll have webinars, three webinars that will explain actually the framework. When we're talking about sustainable development, what are we actually referring to? And then we'll have a 6-day international activity in which 20 young people from different backgrounds and countries will meet and share some good practices and experience they have when organizing youth events at local or national level and being the more eco-friendly possible. And then we have a second one, which is also very linked to advocacy work. It's called Global Solution for Global Problems. It's funded by Global Challenging Foundation, and the aim is to develop and to reflect with young people, but not only in Europe, but on different, with global youth movement from different continents. So with a bigger perspective, I would say, to reflect on how we can actually link sustainability with international governments, and reflect on the idea will be to also have working groups in which people will meet and share experience and expertise and then to develop a set of recommendations to actually adapt governance to the 21st century challenges, which can be very linked to, yes, that will be the last one, to climate change. And yes, it was very, very brief. But yeah, so that's it. Advocacy work, communication, and projects in order to make things concrete with participants at local level.
Thank you very much, Theo, for sharing some of the examples of how you're integrating sustainability into your work, and for finding the time to do this with us today. Okay, and then we also have some of the examples from Vicky Lablock. Vicky is the director of CCIVS. And she will also be sharing some of the work that they do when it comes to the volunteering and young people, and how sustainability has become an integral part of this work. So Vicky, I hope that the screen sharing will work well.
Thank you, Nana. So I'll just go in and do that. So I hope everyone can see it well.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great. Okay then, so thank you very much for inviting us here today. We're really happy to be able to share with you a bit about CCIVS. And in fact, I don't have the first screen, so there's the first screen, and this is our logo. So actually it was redesigned for the 100 years of International Voluntary Service, which was in 2020. A bit of an unfortunate year to have big celebrations, but anyways, we took advantage of it, and we decided to change the color coding of the organization, the visual representation, and we wanted to incorporate a bit more our ideals within that. So basically, as you can see with the logo, we took the colors which are related to climate justice. So if you look at the Earth from space, you'll be able to see the colors which are integrated within our logo. There's the dark blue, which is the principal color of the dark ocean. The green color from nature, from the forests. The light blue is from the sky and the wind, and the light brown comes from the soil. So as already mentioned, CCIVS is a global coordinating body of international voluntary service organizations, and it was created under the aegis of UNESCO in 1948. And it's actively bringing together organizations from all around the world who are working on grassroots volunteer projects. Here's a little bit of an overview of our history. Someone did this recently for us in an event showing the different activities we work on. So it represents more or less 5,000 short and long-term projects with 188 organizations in 79 countries around the world. And yeah, so since 1920, because I said CCIVS was created in 1948, but the movement started in 1920. And really, the organization has been focusing on climate justice since that time. So it was born out of a conscientious objection movement, and it's a work for peace. So the World Network of IVS coherently integrates today climate justice as an inevitable brick in building a sustainable future and in creating a just and fair society. Addressing the unequal allocation of benefits and burdens by relating climate change to matters of justice and human rights can only be done by leveraging the interconnectedness of peoples and communities beyond territories and boundaries, stimulating transformational change through learning. IVS thus electrifies local communities and authorities and mobilizes them around projects benefiting their environments and societies, but it also reshapes the prism through which volunteers themselves can see their own home societies and the impact and consequences of their daily lifestyle on peoples and cultures thousands of miles away. So you can just see, I mean, more or less, there's 38% of our projects which are environmental projects out of the global total. So since 2016, we actually started focusing more on a specific campaign, which is called IVS for Climate Justice. And it's worldwide campaign taking place in over 100 countries, bringing together different IVS networks. And you can see the logos along the bottom there. And it focuses on training, capacity building, local actions, toolkits and reference tools, digital learning tools, impact measurement and advocacy. There's also different partnerships which have been built. So we've worked with also support from the Council of Europe, the European Youth Foundation, through Erasmus+, with different universities, the University of Santa Fe in Argentina, the University of Illinois in the USA. It's been featured on the UNESCO Green Citizens platform. And so we started working in 2015 when we created a document together with NGOs and UNESCO for the COP21. And we continue working today. So actually, we've already made a presentation about our impact measurements. We did a June Forum Lab, so I won't go into much details, but basically participants in the work camps of climate justice have reported statistically significant differences in their general understanding of issues related to global warming and climate change. So here you can see a few examples of local actions. There's a project from SCI Sweden where they're working on bioconstruction, South Africa, sustainable food production, SCI Sri Lanka where they're cleaning a beach, and VVB Peru where they're working using bioconstruction for Aboriginal youth internships. CCIBS has implemented training since 2018, specifically focusing on climate justice, so on bioconstruction, sustainable food production, and soil management and protection. We've also developed digital learning tools. So if you go onto our iLearn site, you can do free courses on bioconstruction and sustainable food production. You can also find on our toolkits and reference tool site soil management toolkits about permaculture, about bioconstruction. We also have the Soil for Life manifesto. So this is live at the moment. We really encourage you to go on our website, check out the manifesto. It's in the translation phase at the moment. It'll be translated to over 10 different languages, and we'll start taking signatures for this from mid-July. And then next year we'll work on making sure that this manifesto goes everywhere it needs to go, so maybe people can hear the voice of youth concerning soil protection and management. We also had a sustainability policy, which you can find on our website, but we are going to update it because our next project is going to go to the heart of the debate around decolonisation and to understand more about the continuing forms of neocolonialism and climate colonialism, specifically related to anthropogenic global warming and the need to actually focus more on our environmental sustainability policy and the growing challenges as well with COVID-19. And here you can just see a few of our logos of organizations which support us with the project. And here you have our details in case of any wish to contact us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky, for sharing the information about your work and also the organizations that are closely working with you on this. And also thank you for your input. I know that you have given quite a lot of feedback on the checklist, and we really appreciate it. And this goes also for all other organizations and individuals who were involved in this process. So now we also have with us, as Lana mentioned at the beginning, Clara Botto, who is a youth activist, environmental activist from Rio de Janeiro. And Clara has been working with an organization in Brazil, and she's an artivist director, creator director of the Artivist movement, actually. And she has taken part in various seminars and various events with the World Bank, with the IMF, with UN, working on climate change and young people. And she also did some work with universities. So I would like to invite Clara first to share what is it that they did with greening universities in Brazil, and then also to open the floor for questions for her to ask the panelists. And at the same time, I would also like to invite you to share any of the questions and comments you might have in the chat or using the Q&A function on the right-hand side. So Clara, I lost you for a bit. It could be that my internet is not showing, but if you're there, please just unmute yourself and
sorry, I had connection issues. Can you hear me now?
Yes, so we can't see you, but we can hear you, so you can go ahead. Now we see
I'm
you,
back.
so
I'm so
perfect.
sorry for that. Okay, I missed what you said during my presentation, but I guess I can speak for myself. So you've mentioned that for the past years I've been working in an attempt to green the universities. And I like that Vicky mentioned some universities here in America. I'm based on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So I've been for the past almost 2 years, actually, I've just concluded my undergraduate thesis, which is a critical review of how the universities here in Rio de Janeiro aren't prepared to form students that are active agents in sustainable development. And we all know that we need more youth. Well, we actually need everybody from different ages that are concerned about the environment and society, but especially youth, because we know that we are going to be the ones taking the decisions in the near future. And our research has found that there is still a long path to be followed where we're not prepared. And while I listen to you guys speaking from Europe, talking about youth, I wonder if that is if you feel that that is a general concern amongst youth in Europe, because here in Brazil, I believe I can speak for Latin America as a whole, because I have friends in different countries here as well. Sustainability it is a known issue, it is a known theme, but it's not actually a concern that everyone has. I feel that we do have lots of amazing movements here. I take part in different ones, but it's a bubble. I feel that my friends and I that are involved in these initiatives, we are a small minority, and I fear that this won't be enough, because we need we need everybody. Since we are everybody on the same boat, we're all facing the same problems. Of course, some more, others less. But I wonder if you feel in your experience in Europe that those that are involved in sustainability movements are still a minority, like here in Latin America, or not. And if you could give me and my friends from Latin America some advices, if you feel that that is already a general concern there in Europe. I believe that's it.
Thank you, Clara, for sharing that. And I will invite the panelists to try to respond to your question regarding what is happening in Europe and compared to the American continent, and if it is comparable at all. I will ask everyone who wishes to speak to raise their physical hand so that it will be easier for me to moderate this Q&A. Maybe while we wait for the speakers, I can also say that yes, there was a lot, as Neringa presented earlier, there was a lot done at the institutional level, both from the side of Council of Europe, but now we are also seeing at the EU level quite a lot of effort on this through Green Erasmus and also the European Green Deal, which is pushing for sustainability. So this is something that has really been recognized by institutions as having an importance not only for young people but for Europe as well, for broader Europe, for all age categories, and something that needs to be worked on. However, we are still to see, of course, when it comes to the implementation of these plans, how they are going to go. Okay, so Neringa.
Thank you for the question, Clara. Research, I think it's very important linking to youth participation in democratic life and civic action. So at least from my experience and what I can notice, not the percentages I've seen, is that youth and organizations which have already been active in the fields of human rights, youth mobility and exchange, even animal welfare, are much more sensitive and also to climate questions, as well as willing to extend their area of focus from their focus area to climate and take it upon as one of the issues they consider and even do projects on. However, we may be losing on young people who have not been already actively engaged in democratic and social life. And it is something for us to consider, that in order to even achieve a kind of wide campaigning for climate action, we need to still focus on issues related to even social justice and having some young people not involved in all of these processes.
Thank you, Neringa. And just before passing the floor to Vicky, I will also share in the chat some of the links to our research, which reflects a bit on this, and the recent article which I mentioned on disobedient youth and climate activism actually tackles a bit of this question of young people's engagement and who are those that are engaged. And interestingly, it is actually young women who have been showing most interest in climate activism. Vicky, the mic is yours.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to say that thank you very much for the question. I think that it really depends also on the country or the place that people come from and what's the principal needs of the people at that time. And that can be the case anywhere around the world, no? Climate justice, climate change issues are not always the first thing that's the most important or that people need to focus on. So it can require an extra energy to go there, or it could be the case that it's just not something that's necessary at that stage for those people. So I think that it's a question all around. No, there are people that are more sensitized than others. We can see it within our movement that there's a huge amount of projects focusing on grassroots organizations working on the environment all around the world. The training we did on bioconstruction, for example, was in Ecuador, and as I said, we were working with the university in Argentina. So I think it really depends. I think there's a lot of work to do. I think that we need to also be very careful with the question of the European Green Deal and these new deals which are coming out. I believe that it's very easy for people to go out in the streets and shout, but unless you make a true change in the way that you live and the products that you buy, unless you think critically about what you're being told, things aren't going to change. And we also need to really think about this Green Deal and think critically about it, because the offset is going to go somewhere. I mean, if we're going to become clean in Europe, it's going to be going somewhere else. So I think we need to always, for me, the question all the world around is to think critically about what is going on and about how we live our lives in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. This is also something that was mentioned in Neringa's presentation and also in some of the background research on sustainability regarding who is paying the price for climate change and how we cannot really function in the bubble and in a vacuum, because what is done on one part of the world will certainly impact what is going on the other part. And we are all one big ecosystem on this planet that needs to figure out how to work together for sustainable future. Okay, I don't see any further questions on the chat, but I have seen that both Theo and Julia have shared some of their research and some of the information about their projects. And I also shared now in the chat some of the links to our research and findings. So I have one question from Tatiana to all the speakers, if they have partner organizations in Russia, because they really like your project and would be interested to join. And I see that Theo has already responded. Theo, would you like to respond in audio format too? I'm afraid that I don't hear you. I don't know if that's the case with others. Try again. Okay, if the microphone doesn't work, then I can read your response, but I will try one more time. Okay, So I think we are having technical difficulties today throughout the event, which is absolutely fine because it is also kind of reminding us how great it is to have events in person where we wouldn't have to check if the microphone is working and if we can see the person or if the connection goes bad. So I think this will motivate us even more now to think about the time when we are all going to meet in person and have to avoid wearing headphones, for example. Okay. Tatiana, Theo has answered your question already that there are some partner organizations and he has shared the contact email here. And Pega has also mentioned the Youth for Diplomacy National Youth Council in Russia. So you can have a look at these and hopefully that will help with your search. I'm just checking in the chat as well. I have seen that others have shared some more links, but I do not see any more questions. And if you do see them in the chat, please let me know. Okay. So maybe just also to share that we were supposed to go live today on Facebook, but we had some technical issues. So the event, the recording will be shared later. So don't worry if you're watching this later and you have not managed to join live. You can still watch the recording, or you're perhaps watching it on the web page of the World Forum for Democracy. Maybe to wrap up, because we only have 6 minutes left, I will just quickly then ask if any of our speakers would like to add anything else. I would give you 1 minute each, and then I will share some of the exciting news about publishing the checklist. So Pega, go ahead.
All right. I think I would have put my hand down when you said 1 minute, but we'll make it happen. I just wanted to really finish off with saying that, to the young people and youth organizations listening and watching us today, that this sustainability checklist is not a means to an end. It's a beginning of a long journey. And I don't think we will just leave it as it is. We might even need to revisit it after a few years. So, it's a living instrument made to support youth organizations. And that doesn't mean that you can you can also go beyond the checklist there. That doesn't prohibit you to at all. This is just a minimum requirement. And also just to let you know that within the policy framework, the work will also continue. So I hope you stay involved and also encourage us with the work that we do on the policy level on this area, because I think we have built a great momentum, and it would be a waste if we do not act on it. So you have my promise from the Advisory Council on Youth on that, and I'm sure to all other young people and youth organizations, you also would say the same. But yeah, I hope I didn't go over, and thank you again for organizing this meeting.
Thank you, Pega. And exactly 1 minute, so perfect timing. Okay, so would anybody else like to share anything? Perhaps Clara has some reflections or follow-up kind of questions for us to think about when we close the event and consider sustainability.
Yes, I believe Pega said everything. They're still along. It's still just the beginning of the journey. I think the climate action movements, they've come to light in the past 2, maybe 3 years, but there's still lots of work to be done. And well, I believe staying here from Brazil, I feel that we're connected in our actions, even though I've said that I feel we're a minority here. I think that because we have nature, we have such an abundance of nature here. At least I live in Rio. We don't really have lots of water issues. I believe we don't feel the climate crisis yet, and that makes people distant from it. But it's something we're working really hard here. And I feel we're aligned. I think it was Vicky that said that our problems are connected throughout the world, and I agree with that 100%. And I'm actually going to move to Europe for my master's, so it's good to know that you're very active there as well. I won't be alone. And yeah, thanks for having this opportunity of sharing my experience here. It was great spending this hour with you guys.
Thank you, Clara, for joining us. And as Pega said, the work doesn't end here. So the task force will meet on the 18th, so on Friday, to discuss maybe some of the feedback we received from this event and on the checklist, and also to plan kind of next steps. From the side of Youth Partnership, when it comes to publishing the checklist, as you mentioned already, it is available now in the draft format, and if you wish to receive it, you can write to us. You can find the contact on our website, and I will also copy the email address in the chat in a moment. And we will also be presenting the checklist in a kind of more user-friendly format. We do recommend that it is not printed for obvious reasons. But it will be made a bit more interactive and easier to use. And we'll also be preparing an animated video so that it is more fun to watch and when thinking about sustainability. This is also a topic that has been picked up by many other areas and of our work. So sustainability will also influence some of the work on learning mobility within the EPLM platform this year. So we'll be researching a bit more on that as well, and seeing how we can include sustainability principles into events which are usually considered to be not very sustainable in terms of the movement of people. And thank you, Neringa, for sharing our email address in the chat. We have 1 minute left, so I would just like to thank all our panelists for being here with us today, for sharing the information about their work, for those who joined, and also to the team from World Forum for Democracy for hosting us here today. So thank you again. Have a lovely afternoon, and we look forward to the other events of the forum for this month of June, which is the Youth Month.